one of the viewers, I think his name was John, he said, why don't you mix up some epoxy and put a drop of white dye in it? And the idea was that, then, I won't be seeing the brass tube when through the clear CA glue that I was planning on using. Now, he didn't say all those words, but that's what he meant. And I've got this horrendous void here. Anyway, I think that's what I'm going to do. Now, I've never done this before. I've used epoxy glue for gluing in brass tubes when I first started doing this, and then I switched to CA because it was so much faster. But I'm going to plug both ends of my brass tube and give it a try. Now, there is one thing wrong with this idea of John's. I didn't think of it myself first. About 15.5 hours ago, I started another pour. It's in the pressure chamber there. And I did a better job on this one. I actually vacuumed it out a little longer, and I don't know if it's going to make any difference or not. And my big fear is that it's going to blow apart on the lathe. But I've got a couple of ideas. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to turn it down again using the sanding belt, and then I'm going to use the metal lathe to very, very carefully turn it down more into a perfect round, and then sand it the rest of the way. Now that's the plan. Now, another thing that I'm going to do that I've never done before is I'm going to double plug the end of my brass tube here. The reason being is because when I'm pushing this back and forth in the blank with a little stick, I don't want to risk pushing the plug in. And I think I'm going to use the epoxy glue on both blanks. Anyway, that looks okay. Now, I know you didn't see me doing it, but I did go back out and I used the rotary wire brush to sort of get some of the wax off the ends here. And right now, all I'm doing is I'm taking some isopropyl and I'm just sort of trying to get the grease from my fingers off of the brass tube because I want the epoxy to stick to the brass tube as good as possible here. Okay, I think you follow what I'm trying to do here. This is the third time now I've got to use these rubber gloves, but it'll be the last time. And I do want to keep in mind that I've only got about 4 minutes, maybe 5, once I start here. It's not like the Alumilite where I have 30 minutes or more. Anyway, here we go. A bit of a disclaimer here. I didn't realize that I wasn't shooting at full wide angle, so I wasn't getting everything, but I think you get the idea. One thing, when you get the dye mixed in like that, it's sure easy to tell where it's mixed and where it isn't. I don't think that this dye is going to hinder the curing at all. Now, obviously, I mixed up way too much here. But I get that stuff from the dollar store. It used to be $1. Now it's $1.25. Okay, enough here. And I wouldn't want to be doing this with my fingers. This stuff is so viscous, it's hard to handle. And my little sacrificial stick here. I'm going to have a lot of cleaning up to do here. Now, if you will remember, this is the one that has the real bad void. And I'll just push it down here, and I realize that the brass tube is right at the far end down there. But I think this is going to be okay. Now, I don't have a whole lot of time here. Here we go with the other one. That's hard to pick up. It's slippery now. Now I know that I could probably do a whole lot of editing here and make it look like this went a lot faster than it actually did. But I want you to see why it is that I switched to CA glue instead of epoxy. Even though in this case, the epoxy is probably going to work out a lot better. It's very slippery. Okay. I might want to use this again. I know from experience it's easy to break epoxy glue off of this waxed paper here. I'm just going to double check and make sure that this is all the way down there. I want the blank and the brass tube to be flush at the far end there. Okay. Oh, do you see an air bubble there? That's not good. Well, we'll see what we've got in about half an hour here. In case you're wondering, from the time I squeezed the epoxy out of the tubes there at the beginning until right now was about 5 minutes. No, I did not keep track of the time here, but it's probably going on about an hour. Anyway, a little bit sticky still. I think I better wait before I try and clean out the brass tubes. This is the end that I was concerned about. And there's that little bubble. You know, I should have popped that bubble. What's the matter with me? Oh well, we'll see what happens. Give it a little bit longer here. So my thinking right now is, why don't I sand these ends down just a tiny little bit at a time until I can see the end of the brass tube. And in that way, I'm going to be able to easily get the wax plugs out. At least that's the plan. See what happens here. I realize that I'm going to have to probably sacrifice a sanding belt, but oh, I've got so many I'll never use them up anyway. Most of the stuff I have from General, in fact everything I've got from General I really like, except this. I bought this sight unseen. Like this has got the General label on it. Wonderful machine. And pretty well all the rest of the stuff too. I can't think of anything I've got a problem with it. It has the General label on it. But this thing here, well, it was in one of the woodworking magazines, and they were kind of, building it up to be really good. It was in what they were, one of their sections in the magazine that was new items. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty good. But then after I bought it and I realized that I got took, and the way I got took is the magazines, they're selling advertising. They're not going to tell you the bad things. Now the bad thing about this is, the worst thing is that when you want to change the belt, you got to take the table off. It's not a case of just taking this cover off. You got to take this table off. That is so dumb. And it's not easy to take off. Okay, I got to get a screwdriver and loosen these. It's been so long since I've done it, I forgot how much work I have to go through. Okay, now I do it all again, only in reverse. I think I know what happened is probably the manufacturer in China or wherever this thing was made came over here to Canada, and they went to General and they showed them pictures and they said, we'll paint this thing green and we'll put your label on it. And I got a feeling that the buyer at General that said, yeah, we'll take 1,000 of these, or maybe 10,000, probably lost his job. Okay, I've almost got it. Now, when I get this all plugged up with the epoxy glue and I want to change it, I got to do it all over again. My woodworking friends, if you are in the market for one of these and you see one that looks like this, don't buy it, whether it says General or not. Maybe in the country you live in it might say Harvey or who knows, maybe Grizzly, I don't know. Don't buy it. Now, as long as I'm complaining, there's no slot in this thing for something like this, so you got to sort of make something up yourself. Anyway, this is the one where the brass tube should probably be almost right there. Probably don't have to take it down not even half a millimeter. But this end here, it's going to be a little bit different. Anyway, put on my ear protection and away we go. Now that sanding belt is completely ruined. And don't get me wrong, generally speaking, I like General stuff. Anyway, I think you can probably see the end of the brass tube there, and a little bit, tiny bit here sort of, right there. It's going to be interesting to see, if I can. Anyway, now because these have to be taken down very little, I'm going to do this by hand. I'm not going to use the drill press. So we'll go just nice and easy here. Okay. Well, I think that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll try and make them round.